some of you know me. I've kind of gotten to know Laura outside of Western, but my name is Jennifer Broxterman. I am a registered dietitian and sports nutritionist. I'm also actually both a Western graduate and a former Western and Brescia faculty member. So I used to teach up on the Brescia campus for about 8 years in the foods and nutrition department, where I taught this really fun intro to foods and nutrition for the non-science majors. And then I taught the advanced sports nutrition course for the 3rd and 4th year students. But as things started to grow with my private practice, I actually now head a team of 8 registered dietitians here in the city. And I'm super proud to say that I've been able to hire all Western grads for the most part, which is really cool. And as a team, our focus is to help people really find their way back to a happy and healthy relationship with food and body image and exercise and healthy eating habits. So what you'll notice in today is I really don't want to come across as preachy of like, these foods are good, these foods are bad. In fact, I'm incredibly passionate about breaking down some of the diet culture norms and instead doing a whole food, but respect your body intuition of like what it feels is best for it. So you'll hear me say this a lot. There's no one right way to eat healthy. It's finding what's right for you in this season and stage of life that you're in. And so my joy is to make nutrition really actionable and applicable, because I know you guys are all intelligent, smart, hardworking people, and that knowledge is already in your brain. So today, I hope you can leave with the handout and some of the examples I'll go through with really clear, actionable steps that you can apply in terms of healthy habits in your own life. So with that being said, we're actually going to start with a tiny little pop quiz. No grades, I promise. I'm not here to actually assess. And what our pop quiz is last night, because how you ate last night is going to be affecting your energy today, your focus, your mood. And so this is just a great random pop quiz, I guess you could call it, for how are things going on a day-by-day basis. So what I want you to do is, whether you have a little Post-it or a scrap piece of paper, or if you want to just grab your phone and open the notes section and just quickly type in there, and just do a brain dump of whatever you had for last night's dinner. And did you snack afterwards? And again, no right or wrong, not to worry. It's just what it was. And I'm going to give you 3 words to keep in the back of your head. Be curious, be kind, be honest. No inner bullies allowed. And then I don't know everyone's Zoom stealthiness with all these pandemic online meetings. When you got last night done, throw me a thumbs up, either with the little Zoom reaction buttons, or you could just do a good old fashioned thumbs up on camera, whatever's easier for you. Couple of thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Perfect. We got thumbs up from the audience, and then the couple black screens, we got thumbs up. So now what we're going to do is we're all going to quickly type and drop it in the chat. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You don't actually have to do that. Here's why I asked that particular question. If your first instinct was like, oh man, do I actually have to like admit that to my colleagues how I ate last night? I have a really bad joke, but about 95% of people, when they do this activity, go, no, like I normally eat a little bit better. Last night was a little bit of an outlier that's not so reflective of how I like to think that I eat. And that's actually what most people say when we do this activity in a big group kind of classroom setting. So one of the things I'll do is I'm going to gently ask you to look at it with a couple of the slides coming up. And we're going to talk about this healthy plate and sort of how to structure portion sizes, and then using this as just valuable data and feedback. There is no such thing as failure. There's only feedback, but we'll see how last night stacks up to what I'm going to show you in the slides to come. So that's why I wanted you to have it written down first before I go and jump into the material. The other thing I just want to make, what's the word I want? Sort of our theme for today's conversation is that imperfect consistency, where we're doing a good enough job fairly consistently, usually outpaces the person that starts like this and then crashes and burns. So there is no perfect wellness diet where you're going to eliminate this and eliminate that and be so, so good. I like to think that what we do every day pretty consistently matters more than the grandiose plan we implement once in a while after the holidays, when exam season's done, when things aren't so crazy. So our day-to-day is the best indicator of how are we going to feel and our mood and our look. The other thing that I really like to bring into coaching is I actually am going to use a school analogy. And this makes so much sense being in an educational facility like Western University. I think about healthy eating on a spectrum, not all on or all off, black, white, good or bad. So another phrase you'll hear me use a few times today is better is better, forward is forward. So if you had a student that was struggling and then worked with a tutor to go from like a 52% to a 62%, that's amazing. They just made an impact on their educational outcome. Better is better, forward is forward. If you had a student that was, maybe capable of a little bit more potential, they were in the low 70s, and then they really buckled down with their study habits, their weekend partying, and moved themselves up to an 85, amazing for them. Better is better, forward is forward. So one thing to remember is to have blinders on, and it only really matters about how you feel about yourself. This idea of comparison, especially with social media, can really affect our mental health and bring us down. And so the other thing I want you to keep in mind for today's nutrition talk is we actually don't want to eat 100% perfectly. So think about this for a second with maybe admissions into a Western program. I would rather admit someone that had a high 80, mid 80 average, but I saw that they maybe did some extracurriculars. Maybe they played a sport, they volunteered, they had a part-time job, and also they did some stuff with their friends. That to me is probably going to be a more well-rounded and balanced student than the person coming in with a 99.8 high school average, but then goes to every prof trying to mark shark, or that was my phrase for it when I taught, being like, oh my gosh, I had a deduction on this essay. How do I get more points out of it? Versus coming to office hours and going, looks like I lost a couple marks. Can you help me understand how I can, grow from this and better myself? So I always think about that with healthy eating is we want to leave that wiggle room for joy and life and socialization. Because when we put the weight of the world on our back about being perfect, it actually, believe it or not, can contribute more to binge eating and falling off and then being really up and down with our mood and the way that we think and relate to food. So I always just want to make sure that when I do nutrition presentations, I'm teaching what a healthy relationship with food that is sustainable can look like for the really long run. So better is better, forward is forward. Now we're going to dive into our top 10 list. And I know this looks really weird, but the first tip I start with is a toothbrush. And here is why. It's not what you think right at surface level. I like to speak a lot in analogies and metaphors because I find that storytelling can make the information really sticky. So I want to just ask a question to all of you, and we'll just do it with a show of hands, whether hand raise or like the Zoom thumbs up. Who here brushed their teeth last night? Everyone. Now, did anyone in the last 365 days of their year not brush their teeth at least at one point because you were just tired, you went to bed, you were up till late, whatever happened? I'm going to out myself. There's been at least one night in the last year I haven't brushed my teeth. Anyone else in the club that has missed it at least once? Okay, so today's a Thursday, right? Imagine if all of us didn't brush our teeth tonight. How would you handle that on Friday? Does anyone want to maybe share their answer just to the audience if you don't mind coming off mute? What would you do? How would you handle that?
Brush longer on Friday.
Yeah, you'd probably just get up Friday morning and like brush your teeth. Would you at all go, oh my gosh, I'm such a screw up. Well, since I already blew it, I'm going to be really off track this weekend. But Monday's when I'm going to get my life back together and go back to brushing my teeth. Or, you know what, I'm going to wait till I have that fall reading week and catch up time. Things are just too crazy on my plate. Now is not the time to really focus on this. I will get back to it when life settles down. That would be really gross and weird, right? Nor would any of you probably call your dentist in a panic and overreact and go, oh my goodness, you have to squeeze me in for an emergency dental cleaning on Friday. I made this huge mistake. I didn't brush my teeth on Thursday night. You wouldn't do that. That's a really weird overreaction. So notice that your inner bully isn't a part of the conversation. You just dust yourself off. It's no big deal. And the next soonest opportunity, you go back to the consistent habit. So someone brings in cookies and you have a couple cookies with your lunch or afternoon snack, no big deal. Your next meal is then maybe your dinner. Can you just make it a healthy choice? And you're right back on track without saying, I've ruined the day. You go out for brunch on the weekend or it's Thanksgiving coming up and you have maybe a more indulgent meal than normal. No problem. The next soonest time that you eat, whether it's maybe breakfast the next morning, no big deal. There's nothing you have to punish yourself for. You get back into the consistent routine. There is a second underlying clue to our success when it comes to teeth brushing. So show of hands, who here keeps their toothbrush and toothpaste in their master bathroom by the sink, really easy and accessible? Anyone keep their, yep, I think that's a 100% sweep. Would you be as consistent if there was a mischievous elf that lived in your house and constantly hid your toothbrush on you? One day it was in the back of the pantry, another day they slipped it into the freezer, another day they put it in the glove box of your car, the next day it was up in the attic, and every night you had to scramble to find your toothbrush and put that together to go brush your teeth. I know I wouldn't be nearly as consistent. So when we think about behavior change, I'm going to show you something in just a few slides, but I'm going to tease it right now. And we call this the iceberg of success. So if you can kind of see on the screen here, it's the environment that feeds into our healthy habits and a positive, supportive, kind, resilient, quick to forgive, quick to get over it mindset helps us stay on track. When we try to do everything through willpower and just having an ironclad mental strength that we won't screw up, that's when most people find it really difficult to be consistent. So my 3 favorite words I just wanted to bring back to today's talk are, can we be curious? Can we be kind? Can we be honest? And then think about the toothbrush. If a meal or snack choice is a little bit lower quality, dust yourself off. And then the next soonest opportunity, you try to make a little bit healthier choice. Is that a helpful way mentally to relate to food for anyone? Does anyone find that maybe a bit better than the diet culture stuff that's out there? Awesome. Okay, so that's my real first non-food, food-related tip. The next one is, I'm going to pull a magnet from my fridge. It's kind of a little silly, but one of our family favorites, the idea of a healthy plate. So this is where I want you to look at last night's notes and look at, if you were to draw a pie chart or a percentage of what went on your dinner plate, do you think you hit about 50% veggies? Do you think you got a great source of protein? And did we have some kind of high quality carb? And poor carbs are very misunderstood. So not only is it going to be the nature carbs, so things like bulgur, brown rice, steel cut oats, barley, buckwheat, but we can lump a few of the more high carb vegetables into the high carb, quality carb portion of the plate. So I like to think from the vegetable family, instead of placing them up here, I would place potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn, squash, peas, and then maybe some of the root and tuber vegetables like turnips and parsnips. Now, none of these are bad for us, but what we want to do is we want to think about sort of a 1, 2, 3 prioritization. And that's where our hands are going to come into play. So when you look at last night's dinner, zero judgment, but be curious, be kind, and be honest. What did you write down first? You don't actually have to share the actual food, but throw it in the chat for me. Did you record your vegetable first? Did you record your protein first? Or did from memory your carb come to mind first? When you look at your actual notes, which one did you write down first? So I'll have you all quickly drop that in the chat. So it'll just be the answer of carb, protein, or vegetable. And then Leah, as my co-host, is going to help me. And she's going to read for me sort of the group consensus of what came up first, just so we can sort of see.
I feel like this is all over the place.
That's okay too. That happens sometimes.
So we had burger, protein, 3 proteins at the top.
Yep.
4 proteins and 3 carbs.
Okay.
Starch.
0 vegetables. Did anyone write down their vegetable first?
No.
Oh, for veggies, they came in last. So here is the fun, applicable takeaway from the healthy plate is imagine we create a new habit. So I'm going to ask you sort of another silly out there metaphor to bring it back to food. Who here has wore their seatbelt in the last week? 100% of the time that they were in their vehicle, right? All of us have. Why is that? Because we've created such an automatic reflex, we would almost feel uncomfortable and we would definitely notice something was off if we drove around unbuckled. And so what we want to do to build consistency is think about these tiny little routines that when these routines are designed with intentionality, and then we start to practice the routines over and over and over again, it has this lifelong positive influence. So teaching our young children, buckle up, buckle up, buckle up, eventually it's just something that there's that reflex, your hand just goes for it. So I want to bring in the seatbelt reflex for healthy eating. Whenever you have an empty plate, can you buckle up and serve your vegetables first? And so it will do 2 things. One, if they go on the plate last, we might have the good intention to eat some vegetables, but then, oops, this part of the plate gets smaller and smaller and smaller if they don't claim their territory first. And then secondly, when that's a reflex, when the vegetables go missing from a meal, it will feel off. Kind of like if I said, the next 3 days, all weekend long, I want you to drive everywhere you go unbuckled. Okay, please don't do that. I care about your safety and well-being, but you would instantly feel uncomfortable. You would instantly feel like your routine was messed up, and probably you would forget and buckle up anyways, even if I asked you not to. So if we can create this automatic practice, are you up for an experiment for the month of October? What if you tried lunch and dinner, or at least your supper meal, to always serve your vegetables first? And you just start getting those votes and practice reps in, where you buckle up your veggies first, you buckle up your veggies first, you buckle up your veggies first. And now we already have built-in portion control with about half of our plate being filled with a very high quality vitamin and mineral filled nutrient dense option. So that's one of my favorite ways to not have people calorie count, but still have really great lifelong nutrition. The next thing that really goes along and supports this is we're all going to look at our hands. And this is going to seem kind of funny, but I'm going to hold my hands up to my head. My hands, I think, are pretty proportional to my height. So I'm about 5'6", so somewhere in the middle. And I have medium-sized hands. They're not ridiculously big or ridiculously small, but my hands kind of grew to my height. Do you feel like when you look at your hands, they're pretty proportional to how tall you are? So if you're a little bit shorter, do you have a little bit maybe smaller hands? If you're super, super tall, do you have a little bit larger hands? And again, not that I'm trying to make it all about gender, but males on average tend to have just slightly bigger body sizes genetically, and females on average tend to have slightly smaller body sizes genetically. So our hands tend to match what our individual needs are. So a super simple way or habit, number 3, is to think about using your hands as a really quick, rough measuring guide for how we're going to stack food on our plate. So I always think about one of my outstretched hands covering about 50% of the plate. And ideally, I want to do that 2 times a day. So whether that be lunch and dinner, whether that be a big snack and dinner, more is better. That's great. But as a minimum, if I can hit about 2 servings of my hands, I've taken in about 6 to 7 servings of vegetables, which is way above the Canadian average. And then if I use the seatbelt rule to get it on the plate first, that ensures that I serve enough vegetables because they have the first dibs at claiming that territory on the plate. And so even with things like a holiday meal coming up, I know Thanksgiving is right around the corner. I always, when I host, stack all the vegetables first. We do it kind of as a family buffet. So I put the salad and the green beans and the carrots, first. Then I put the turkey and the protein next in line. And then I put more of the high calorie, starches like the stuffing and potatoes and, cranberries or whatever else it might be last on the buffet line. And so super subtly, even for my family, I can influence that they're doing the seatbelt rule and starting with vegetables on their plate first. Now, I'm not here to tell them how much to take. You do you enjoy your Thanksgiving meal. But even in our environments, we can just tweak it to help people get there a little bit easier. Then, if we look at the palm of our hand, we want to think about putting our protein on next. So the vegetables are really going to tick off fiber and vitamins and minerals. The protein is what gives us the building blocks for muscle, metabolism. Protein is a very energy intensive nutrient to break down, and it's a very satisfying or satiating nutrient. So when we have lots of protein with our meal, we tend to not have as many food cravings in the hours afterwards because we just feel so satisfied. So again, it doesn't have to be a honking piece of steak. And also this can come from both plant and animal sources, but kind of looking at roughly the palm of our hand. And then for carbs, if you go make a balled up fist and look at sort of the size of one of your curled up fists, that's what we're going to do for our carb part of our meal. Or if our goal is a little bit of body composition change, maybe we're in a season of life where we're just not as active and not, going to the gym or able to move as much as we would like, then taking off about maybe 10 to 25% of our hand and going down to that maybe 75 to 85% of our fist. And then where we want to pull from the starches is what I call the nature carbs. So these are things that don't tend to cause binge or overeating. Squash, sweet potato, things like turnips, parsnips, barley, buckwheat, brown rice. Has anyone here ever just like stress ate bowls and bowls of steel cut oats at 10 o'clock at night on a deadline? I have not met a client that's done that. Has anyone ever said, get that butternut squash out of my house? I cannot control my house when we buy butternut squashes from the farmer's market. Like if that sits on the counter, I am diving into it within the first couple of hours that it comes home. I've still yet to meet a client that's had a problem with that. I have never met someone who devoured a bag of apples in one sitting. And at the end of 14 apples, they're just like, what just hit me? I don't know what came over me to do that. So when
I can give you one client. I'm allergic to butternut squash.
oh, well, there you go.
There you go. There's one.
But you wouldn't then go eat a whole butternut squash, right?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So I still have not met a person who just crushes it and can't control themselves. But show of hands, like who here hasn't had a night where they've gone way too deep into a bag of chips and not felt amazing afterwards? I've done it. Who here, with mini eggs at Easter is like, oh my gosh, how did I eat those so quickly? I've done that. I've baked pans of brownies and cookies before and meant to save them over a number of days. And like, oh my gosh, how did my husband and I just finish a pan of brownies in like a day and a half? That should have taken a little bit longer to get through it. So when carb quality is worse, we tend to struggle with our carb quantity. But when carb quality remains really high and mimics how nature prepared that food, as opposed to always making ourselves eat super low carb, I just think about seatbelts, veggies going first, palm of my hand, let's get a ton of protein to be satisfied, and then go put some high quality carbs on the last part of the plate. And that gives me some portion control but sort of that slow, steady blood sugar balancing out for following the meal in the hours to come. So I like cans because they come with us everywhere. And then, of course, let's not forget about positive and healthy fats. They're a very important part of shiny hair and smooth skin and, different hormones that we produce inside of us. And so we want to think about kind of the tip of our thumb spread out a few times a day. So that might be some olive oil that you put on a salad. That might be, if you want to butter your vegetables, that might be some, coconut oil or coconut to saute your food in. That could be things like whole food fats like salmon, avocados, nuts and seeds. That might be a little bit of yogurt or cheese that has some fat. So we're not anti-fat. I'm not anti-carb. I'm not anti-protein. They all have their place, but we tend to feel our best when we keep them in balance with one another. The next thing I want to really emphasize as a lifelong healthy habit is two things kind of snuck into this picture of a rainbow. One is around just the obvious. The more fruits and vegetables we eat consistently, the better our long-term health. It is one of the top correlations we can do from our food choices, regardless of how you eat overall, whether you're vegan or omnivore or pescatarian or keto or paleo or all the different things that are out there. I think every scientist is in agreement for the most part that lots of colorful, especially vegetables and fruits, is wonderful for chronic disease prevention and great overall health. But there is something really cool also embedded into the rainbow. And I'm going to show you this with the nerdy prof and me doing some gamification theory. So on the next slide here, I have a blown up version of the game I'm holding up here. And if you would like a copy of this game, I'm more than happy to email it out. And I'll share my email in just a second so I can send a copy to you when we're done. So what is on this sheet is there's about 100 different colorful fruits and veggies to choose from. And in our behavior change science, there is two ways to approach changing our food habits and our behavior. One is to do more of things that are positive for our health in the long run. The other approach is to do less of things that are not so good for our health in the long run. Do you think it's equal if we focus on positives versus negatives? Or do you think one approach has a more long-term, consistent, positive effect? You would be right if you said yes. It's the positive approach that always outperforms the negative restriction. And I'll give you some practical examples so you can reflect on this and see how it would sit for you in your own life. So imagine I started with the negative. And I don't think any of you would disagree, or maybe you've probably heard this in one form or another, that highly processed, high sugar foods are not great for our health in the long run, right? If we're drinking things like a pop every day, if we're having Pop-Tarts for breakfast, if we have a bowl of ice cream every night for dessert, we're just taking in tons and tons of sugar into our daily intake. I think you would all agree, probably not a great long-term pattern to be stuck in. So me on my high horse, I go, finger wag, sugar's bad. I want you to go processed sugar free. So could you do that today? Today's a Thursday. I want you to go all day, no refined processed sugar whatsoever. And if you do that, you get a point at the end of the day. And then I want you to do that all weekend. So I want you to go the next 3 to 4 days, absolutely no sugar. And you can get 1 point per day for each day that you go without sugar. Do you think you could do that for 3 weeks? Do you think you could do that for 3 months? How about 3 years? I feel like a deflated balloon. Can you kind of feel the wind coming out of your sails with like the pressure to be that perfect for that long? So when we actually coach people, and science will back this up, by telling them to restrict not so great choices, people will start off all gung-ho with willpower, but willpower is this fickle thing. It's there and it abandons us, and it's there and then it runs away again. It's a very flaky friend. It can be a friend, but it's not the most dependable friend. So I want to now give you a different scenario. Imagine I said, hey guys, I have about 110 different colorful whole food fruits and veggies. And what I want you to do for this next month is just see how many different colors you can add to your body. And every time you try something different, I want you to give yourself a positive point. So if you always get red apples, great, give yourself a red apple point. But maybe one week you pick up red grapes, and another week you get some red radishes, and another week you pick up some frozen strawberries to go into a smoothie. Oh, but let's not just do the reds. Let's pull from oranges, yellows, greens, blue purples, and the whites. And maybe you like green beans, but you can't remember the last time you ever bought the yellow colored beans. Cool, add those in your grocery cart this week. And imagine if I said, could you go 3 days where you try to hit a couple of different colors every single day for the next 3 days? I think I could do that pretty well. Do you think you could stick with the challenge for about 3 weeks? Just constantly pulling different colors from your fridge, using the sheet as a little guide. I think I'd still be inspired to do that 3 weeks from now. What about 3 months from now? Do you feel good that you could still get a couple different points per day, just pulling different colored fruits and veggies to go into your body? What about 3 years from now? Do you think that would still feel really good to have that as a focus to give yourself points? So the scientific term for this is called approach versus avoid goal setting. Approach goal setting is I am moving towards a yes. So I am saying yes to eating a different colored vegetable, yes to trying a new recipe, yes to going for a walk after dinner, yes to drinking a glass of water with each meal. And if I miss one of my yeses, no big deal. I can always catch the point up later in the day. So maybe I didn't have enough water just yet. I can just drink my water a little bit later, and I still have an opportunity to get my wellness point. But if I talk about avoiding bad things, that is called an avoid-based goal. And avoid is where you take a step back. And the moment you don't take the step back and you fail and give in, you get the slap on the wrist and you have lost the point for the day. So when you think about it from a motivation standpoint, what do you think is more inspiring? What do you think contributes to more consistency? What do you think contributes to more endurance? It is saying yes and voting by positive addition, more so than saying no and trying to make a daily vote through an all or nothing subtraction. And so if you think about a lot of the diets that are out there and you just reflect with curiosity, kindness, and honesty, and maybe you've even tried this in the past, a lot of the diets that set people up to fail talk about all the things to take away and avoid. And then people feel like they're the failure when they give in. No, you don't suck. It's that style of behavior change that isn't as well backed by scientific research. But when we see people who add more good, they have a much easier time and it sticks a whole lot better. So if you find this idea really inspiring and you want to just play my little approach colorful veggie fruit rainbow game, I will totally send each of you a copy that you can print out from today's presentation. So if you want to just open your phone and send me an email, or if you've got your desktop open, my email, and maybe Leah can help me by typing it into the chat, is info. So it's INFO. And then just at the word nutrition. So NUTRITION, and then the letters RX, like in my logo, .ca. And all you have to do is in the subject, just write the word rainbow, and I'll know if I see the word rainbow, what that means. And then as soon as we wrap up today's call, I'll go to my email and I'll just start attaching the rainbow game for all of you. And then that way you have a copy if you'd like to play it. Does that sound good, everyone? Okay. Now, if you have little ones at home, I always think when I coach nutrition that as adults, we have a really important and powerful role to do through role modeling. So we don't want to show our little people in our family this kind of toxic diet culture of like, oh my gosh, I'm on a diet. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad. I've fallen off my diet. We really just want to demonstrate that consistency, that healthy relationship with food. So I have a little kid-friendly game, and it also is just a bingo for them to play, where if mom and dad are going through and kind of playing the family game with all the different colors and getting family points on the refrigerator, what I find really helpful for kids kind of under 10 is going out and letting them pick a pack of favorite stickers, going to like a dollar store. Maybe it's Paw Patrol or princesses or dinosaurs or animal stickers. And then what they can do is they can put a sticker on the bingo and try to either get a line or a diagonal or get the whole board filled in. And then if you want to attach a reward, what I would just suggest is no food-based reward. So what we don't want to do is go, okay, I'll take you out for Dairy Queen if you eat your vegetables, because it starts to condition, this is something I have to get through to earn a treat. Instead, maybe make the reward something that's more of like a family bonding activity, but bring some fun and excitement in for the child. So maybe it's, let's go to the trampoline park when you've completed your bingo square, or let's go snow tubing at Bowler Mountain as like a winter activity and a reward for being so great with your nutrition. So just kind of, if you want to add a reward, you can, you don't have to, but kids find it really fun to play along. And this is just a little more age and food appropriate for the little ones. So also, if you would like a copy of the bingo, same email, info, INFO, at nutritionrx.ca, and just put the word bingo in the subject line. And then for any parents that want a bingo copy, I'll send you one as well. So you saw me kind of allude to this thing that I call the iceberg of success. And this is what we actually start every one of our nutrition client journeys off with, is we start with this idea of the iceberg. Well, why is that? It's because when I talk to enough people, I noticed a really distinct pattern. When people think they need to eat better, they try to do it top down. So they're like, okay, I'm going to try really hard. I've learned about healthy eating online or from friends or, from a dietitian or whatever it might be. These are the rules. And then I just need to follow the food rules to be in better health. But inevitably, and maybe you can relate yourself, people lose steam because willpower is that really inconsistent friend. So I want you to think about your seatbelt, and I want you to think about brushing your teeth. How much does willpower come into play with brushing your teeth and wearing your seatbelt? Probably very little. So instead, let's look at, why is that so consistent? We go from the bottom up. We have a mindset that, this is a pattern I'm going to be doing the rest of my life. You don't think about brushing your teeth just when things are calm and settled down. You recognize that brushing your teeth is a lifelong thing you're going to do. Same thing like wearing your seatbelt. Then we build a really supportive environment where we make the healthy choice the easy choice. And then when our environment and our mindset are aligned, it's so much more simple to have consistency with those good habits. And so the last back part of our talk today is we're going to talk about the 3 levels of the environment. So our physical environment is, where do we actually hang out? Your home is one really important physical environment to think about with curiosity, kindness, and honesty. The food perspective. Is your freezer filled with quick meals that you can heat up from meals that you made maybe other nights to cover you for lunches when you're low on groceries? Does your pantry have easy to grab snacks that are nutritious and good for you? Do we have maybe a gym bag by the front door if our goal is to get to the gym after work, so it's easy to grab and be consistent and follow through with what we said? So anywhere that we can think about eliminating friction to make the healthier behaviors that we're going to vote yes for easier, the more we want to do that in our physical environment. Our social environment is who we surround ourselves with in the example that not only we set, but other people set. This workplace wellness is such an awesome example of social support because it's normalizing as a group of colleagues. Western cares about your well-being and health. They want to help you have lots of energy and get out of this maybe hopefully toxic work culture situation and take breaks and learn about healthy eating and positive behavior change. And so we want to make sure that our friends and colleagues are in the same boat, rowing in the same direction we want to go. If we always have a friend that wants to go out drinking and for appetizers, That's a lot different than a friend going, you know what, let's meet up this weekend, but why don't we go for a dog walk through Springbank Park and get in a nice brisk hour walk and catch up with one another. So social support plays a really big role. And then online, it can be a very double-edged sword. What's great about online is you can find communities where you really belong and connect with like-minded people, especially if you don't have a lot of that social support at home or through work. But at the same time, if we get caught in just wasted online scrolling and or just a lot of comparison, oh my gosh, like they went keto and look what they look like, and why isn't this working for me when I'm trying to do things the right way or whatever. Remember, if online is really being triggering, close it down. When I think about my online use, I always ask, does this bring me up? And if it doesn't, I'd rather invest the time instead of scrolling into doing some food prep or hiking in the woods with my dog. That I know is going to contribute to feeling better. So be very on guard about your environment level, because if we can get mastery in the environment level, all the other pieces start to come into place. And I'm going to read you one of my all-time favorite quotes. Has anyone here ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear? Has anyone read that book before? Holy smokes, add this to your wish list maybe for Christmas time. It is probably the best habit behavior change book that's out there on the market right now, and I've read a lot of different ones. So let me read you a really cool passage. When scientists analyze people who appear to have tremendous self-control, it turns out that those individuals aren't at all that different from those who are struggling. Instead, disciplined people are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. In other words, they spend less time in tempting situations. The people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. It's easier to practice self-restraint when you don't have to use it very often. So yes, perseverance, grit, and willpower are all essential to success. But the way to improve these qualities is not by wishing that you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment. So even researchers who talk about behavior change bring it back to the level of our environment. Why do we brush our teeth? Because our toothbrush and toothpaste in our environment make it so easy to follow through. So with that, let's talk some environment ideas around healthy eating. My favorite environment idea is something that I call the veggie bucket. And I have a silly little picture. It matches what you'll see on the screen. But if I were to come over as a guest and plop myself into your house and open the fridge door, would I find vegetables ready to eat the moment I open your fridge? Or would I have to go in your crisper, get them out, wash them, cut them up, and get them ready? If we could do a quick draw, cool, vegetables ready, you've passed the one pop quiz. No judgment, curious, kind, honest. So I used to actually have a problem with this. When I was an undergrad, I called my vegetable drawer my drawer of death. It was where my good intentions went to die. I bought the vegetables, I intended to eat my vegetables, and some of them came out and ended up in my stomach, but some of the vegetables died a sad, slimy, rotten, wilted death in the back of the crisper. Has anyone else had a crisper drawer that's turned into their drawer of death before? Just me? A few of us, right? So here's something cool I learned in one of my psych classes from Western. I learned about this principle called anchoring. Anchoring is when we glue something we already do to something new we want to have stick to that particular habit. So I'll give you a really clear, easy example. If I shampoo my hair in the shower, well, then following up with conditioner, really the conditioner is anchored to the shampoo. If I start shampooing, automatically the conditioner kind of follows, and that's anchored together. So I thought about this. We were tasked in our psych class to be like, can you find a habit that you've been meaning to do more of that you can anchor to something that will happen without fail? And I thought about it and I said, well, what do I do without fail? Of course, I put my groceries away when I come home from shopping. I have never left chicken and yogurt and eggs sitting out on the counter and be like, in 4 hours, I'll get to that. I'll put it away when it's convenient. Of course not. You come in with all your bags of groceries and then you put them away. And that is just a part of what grocery shopping is, required. So I thought about it and I said, since I'm already in chore mode, what would it take if I latched on 5 to 10 more minutes? I'm already doing this as it is. Why don't I just wash my vegetables the moment I come in the door and I get them all laid out on the counter? And then I just simply chop them up into a veggie bucket. And now I'm done grocery shopping when the vegetable bucket goes into the fridge. And it's such a subtle little change to anchor and glue our veggie bucket. But now, like, who here gets groceries every week? Pretty much most of us, right? It's a necessity of life. So imagine if week after week after week after week, you started to just anchor chopping your vegetables and making a veggie bucket attached to grocery shopping. How much easier is that going to make our seatbelt rule if we're trying to follow through with the healthy plate? It's that much easier. So that is tip number 6, or habit number 6, is can you get in the groove of a weekly veggie bucket?
Question on the veggie bucket.
Yeah.
Don't they go bad? Because every time I wash them, within 2 days, they're done. And
Yes
I go
and
grocery
no.
shopping every 2 weeks because I can't go every week.
Yeah. So yes and no. Here's some things to kind of help the veggie bucket not get gross. Put
Yeah.
a paper towel across the bottom. So that way you kind of have a little bit of moisture control with the help of the paper towel. I always try to buy things that are going to be stable up to a week and a half. So cherry tomatoes, they're not going to get rotten and slimy. You just give them a wash. Things like the snow peas and sugar snap peas are a little more hardy. The carrots, I still keep in their own bag so that they're in the water so that they don't get white and crusty and they dry out. And then the things that go bad the quickest tend to be more like your bell peppers, your cucumber, your celery. So celery, if I need it to last longer, is I'll put it in its own bin and I'll put in some ice cold water with it and just let the celery float around in water. Or if I buy the large carrots, I'll do the same thing. I'll do a bin of celery and carrots in water and they'll last longer. Peppers, I slice really fat, not really skinny. And then you just have to eat your peppers quickly, like the front half of the week. Cucumbers, what I'll do is I'll cut them in big fat chunks. So I might cut 5 chunks per cucumber total, not a whole bunch of little circles. Push the cucumber back together to reseal the edges. And then the cucumber doesn't go as bad as quickly. Or I'll buy the baby cucumbers that are whole and wash the baby cucumbers as a whole unit. And then I just stick whole baby cucumbers in. And then I just like bite off the nub. And then if you're only going every second week, could you even do like a run-in just to get vegetables? Or you might need to keep some frozen veggies to get you through week number 2, that you go to more like roasted, microwaved, grilled vegetables. So one thing you'll hear me say, maybe I haven't said it yet, is I always think about solution-oriented problem solving. So I don't do pity parties. If it's a reoccurring problem, that's cool, curious, kind, honest. And then we're going to get right into problem solving mode of what can I do? Not, I can't do it. I can't know all these restrictions. One thing I always say to my client is, what is a solution that could work? And then we just throw spaghetti noodles at the wall and see which of those ideas stick the best for that person. So maybe you need a midweek or weekend top up that's really quick and light. Maybe it's running into a farmer's market. Maybe it is one of those fruit and vegetable delivery boxes where it comes to you. Maybe it's frozen vegetables and fruit. And then some of the ways to cut and prepare so that you extend the shelf life a little bit. Does that help? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Next idea plays off the veggie bucket, but now we're doing this for our snacks. And what's great about the snack one is we don't have to do it as frequently. I find the sweet spot is about once a month. So I had to go get an oil change for my car yesterday, but the reason I followed through and did it is because it was an appointment I made on my calendar. Likewise, when my snow tires need to go on, that is an appointment I'm going to keep. So most of us live and die by our calendars. What gets scheduled gets done. Why do so many of us not actually do healthy food prep and healthy eating? Because no one really schedules it. So I find that when I plop a little health appointment into my calendar, and I just call it like a snack prep box appointment or a health appointment, I put one of those in a month, and then I just go and make sure that I have more of those beneficial snacks. And then I divide them into little portions to make it easy to eat, a portion controlled amount. So I might make up little nut and seed containers. I might get little cans of tuna, some little healthy crackers divided up into little containers or baggies, maybe things like unsweetened applesauce, and I'll make like hemp hearts and cinnamon and raisins that I can dump into it. And so it's kind of like a little assembly or factory line. If I'm going to do mixed nuts and seeds and then put them in those little salad dressing containers, it's so much easier to just make up a mixed bowl of nuts and then go scoop lid, scoop lid, scoop lid, scoop lid, and just sit there for 20 minutes assembling all those snacks. And now it goes into a bin in our pantry. And then if I have to go pack food for a work day, boom, I can go to my snack bucket and pull out what I need. Or if you spend a lot of time in the office, you might make a little mini snack bucket or a shoebox size to maybe keep in your office drawer. So you're not running to Tim Hortons because you're low on energy and then buying something that maybe isn't, most in line with your long-term goals. So that's just another idea, again, to make the environment more supportive. I hope you've noticed the trend that I haven't tried to ram one style of eating down anyone's throat. So I am all for, if paleo works for you, that's awesome. If you do better with lower carbs and more vegetables and protein and fats, that's great. If you like a little bit more whole food carbohydrates and you're really active, awesome. There really, truly isn't one right way. And even in our lifetime, we go through different seasons and changes where, for instance, if you're approaching kind of more of that menopause age, you might find that you don't tolerate carbs as well. And you might have a meal where you feel better with more vegetables and protein and less of the starch, or maybe eliminating the starch. That's okay. What we want to do is we want to think about nature first, whole foods, but be like the well-rounded student in high school. Give me a good 84, 85 average and go play some sports and volunteer and do band and maybe even go to a party or two with your friends. I would much rather take that nutrition-wise. And what you'll notice how I frame the less than desirable food choices is I just think of them as joy and fun food experiences. So I don't actually call it bad when I have brownies or cookies, or I take my little niece and nephew to go get an ice cream cone. Those aren't bad decisions. They're just things I maybe don't want to be doing every single day. But once in a while, yeah, that's totally fine. And taking that perfectionistic pressure off and thinking about mostly whole foods, making them convenient, and then having some fun with the more processed stuff, that really can be balanced, healthy eating. So mindset. Now we're going to the deepest part of the iceberg. And I bring this in way in front of the willpower importance, because our self-talk and the way that we problem solve is way more important than trying to just have like iron resolve and being disciplined. So our thoughts become our actions, and our actions become our habits. So let's use the toothbrush example. We know with our thoughts, this is something I'm going to do the rest of my life. Probably you'll notice the thought of like, you don't wait for the right time to brush your teeth. You just do it all the time. You do it on vacation, you do it on Christmas holidays, you do it on the normal day-to-day grind of stressful work environments. It's just something that you do. And if you get off track, no big deal. You come back to it as soon as you can. So notice that form of self-talk versus the whole, oh, I was so bad with my food. Well, this weekend's a write-off. I'm going to the cottage with my friends. There's no way I could possibly eat healthy under that set of circumstances. I'll have to start once I'm back from the cottage and back from vacation. Can you see how that self-talk probably sets you up to have a more difficult time being consistent? So can we just kick our inner bully out of the conversation? We're going to bring in our curious voice. We're going to bring in our wise voice. We're going to bring in a supportive voice. and we're going to be okay. We can't be perfect because it's just not possible with healthy eating. And in fact, I do so much eating disorder recovery coaching. The people who try to be the most perfect with their eating often have the most dysfunctional relationship with their food. We're the people that just give themselves some grace and know that food will be some fun experiences some of the time. That's okay too. Last, but definitely not least, is the pre-planning ahead. We will really struggle to be consistent and be successful if we have to do this by the seat of our pants every single day. So this might look like different things to different people. It might be shopping with a grocery list, so you've thought about what dinners are coming up after work. It might mean having pre-cut up fruit and veggies so they're easy to grab in your refrigerator. It might mean scheduling a snack bin, just like a haircut or an oil change, so that that prep is a priority and it's gone into your calendar and you've gotten some really great options ready to go. I'm a big fan of keeping some glassware around so that anytime you do make a really healthy meal, throw some portions away into the back of your freezer. And now you have your own self has saved yourself for future lunches. When you're rushed, you're busy, you're tired, you have fewer groceries, you're running low on vegetables, and you can pull something from the freezer. So here's an example of what that might look like, where you set a Saturday aside, you cook a particular meal, and then you go and fill it up. So it's half veggies, some protein, healthy carbs, pop a lid on it, and you've got that ready to go. I even do this with my friends as a Christmas cookie swap, but no cookies involved. So I got invited to be in a cookie swap a few years ago, and I just knew the environment. If I brought home like 80 different cookies from all these different friends, probably wasn't going to be a easy environment to stay the course of how I wanted to eat. So I asked a couple of my friends if they still wanted to do a swap, but we did it with a nutritious meal instead. So there's 3 of us who said yes, and I cooked one flavor of a meal. My other friend cooked a second flavor of a meal, and my third friend cooked her meal. We all made 15 portions. So I made one meal, 15 portions, 15 portions, 15 portions. And then we just kind of got together, and I got to keep 5 of mine, 5 of my friend Anna, and 5 of my friend Adrian. And now in the back of my freezer, I had all these great options, 15 portions to go, of 3 flavors to choose from. So can you see how I use that social support of the environment level to, again, feed the habits and the consistency? Another kind of fun environment hack is something that I call pick 2, make 10. And what this is it simplifies the decision fatigue around what am I going to snack on at work. So whether you have 1 snack a day or maybe you need 2 snacks, I find it really easy to do bulk prep. So one week I might decide that this is a week I'm going to do apples and nuts, and I'm going to do vegetables and hummus. Cool. On Sunday, I get 5 apples washed, 5 little containers of nuts, 5 little jars of hummus. I stick my veggies right into the little jars. They all go in the fridge. And now to quickly assemble that into my lunch, so easy to grab A and B. And then the next week, so I don't get bored, I again add abundance and variety. So maybe the next week is I buy blueberries, a couple pints of that, and wash them up and divide them into little containers. And then maybe I put a little yogurt to go with each blueberry container. And then the afternoon, as I get 5 pears, I wash them up, I boil a bunch of eggs, boom, that makes that week a little bit simpler. Maybe another week is grapes and cheese and kiwis and cashews. So it doesn't have to be exactly those snacks, but can you see the efficiency? By planning ahead, whole food, healthy choice, the easy choice. Now I have all this energy in my workday because I'm not having the dip and then either using caffeine or sugar to pick myself back up again, or I'm not coming home so hangry that I'm devouring my dinner and I can barely, wait to eat because I've just gone a little too long. So just some ideas to make it a bit simpler. So we have made it to the end of the top 10 list. What I would love to ask each of you to do, if you're cool to put it into our chat, is what is 1 or 2 things that were really useful light bulb moments for you and you're like, yeah, I could totally go out of our conversation today and start to vote and put that into practice. Maybe you love the idea of playing the rainbow game and coloring it up is going to be your focus for the next month. Maybe you like the idea of the healthy plate and the portion size and using the half plate of veggies and the seatbelt rule. Maybe the veggie bucket really resonated with you, or the snack box. So just throw it in the chat. And then again, I'll have Leah be sort of our moderator to help. And let's all share something so that we can have that social support from one another about just a healthy takeaway and an action you can do from today's steps.
Question for you. You didn't really mention dairy anywhere. So, calcium, vitamin D, where does that fit into the plate?
It's in that protein part of the plate.
Oh, it's in protein. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Good observation there.
So far we've got snack box, veggie box, watching portions. Not having to use willpower is way less stressful. I hate that too.
For sure. That's great, you guys. Okay, so to wrap up, I want to be mindful. I know you guys have to get back to work. Think about it like this. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. It comes back to brushing our teeth. It's the little things that we do really consistently that matter so much more than the big, good intentions we might have in our head, but get stuck because we wait till things are perfect before we can get it rolling. If you find this kind of approach really helpful, one thing to take advantage of is many employers, I think Western is one of them, for sure with the student benefits, cover health promotion. So they do things where they will give you some money to go see a registered dietitian, which is what myself and my team of dietitians are. And this is just the fun stuff we love to do, is to break it down into manageable, bite-sized, haha, pun intended, action steps to help you take what's in your head and just find your way back to a little more consistency so you feel energetic and comfortable and happy and healthy in your own skin. So a lot of places do actually have 500 to 1,000 a year. I don't know if any of you have looked into your benefits, but I just want to remind you that that's always an option if getting some one-on-one coaching is really helpful. The other thing that the timing just worked out so perfectly, and Laura and I were chatting about before we booked this, is I have a 6-week nutrition kickstart called Powerful Progress. So it takes all the information of today's talk and we spread it into actions over 6 weeks. And what we do is we do one theme per week. So 1 week is eating more vegetables. 1 week is getting more protein. 1 week is on more water and less alcohol and sugary drinks. 1 week is on sleep and stress. We do 1 week on mindset, such an important week. And we do 1 week on more whole foods, more snacking, better with more whole foods, more meal planning. And so all that it works out to is you get a little lesson that I'll send you each day to your phone. And then you basically just have to tick on your phone the positive vote. Yes, I did that habit. So it might be like the healthy plate. Yeah, I had vegetables 1 today. Yes, I had my veggies number 2 today. And so most people do this with about that 80% consistency. And the 6 weeks becomes this amazing reset that the wheels are spinning and they're back in motion and they feel so good when they graduate. So our timing is perfect because the next one actually starts this Sunday and we're going off as a group. So if you want to be a part of it, it's $150, so nothing too crazy. But if you want to send me an email with the info@nutritionrx.ca and just put like Powerful Progress in the subject line, I can make sure that you can get into this Sunday's group. We'll do it again in January. So if you miss it this time, not to worry, it will come back around. But this is a great way to take this awesome conversation and then go into momentum of like, let's just implement it in our own lives. Willpower excluded. So I would love to connect if anyone has follow-up questions. If we have a minute, we'll definitely go through any questions that maybe remain. I know we did questions throughout, but yeah, any questions I can answer before we wrap up today's healthy eating presentation. Thank you so much all for being here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's about fruit, and because it's high in sugar. I mean, it's the good sugar.
Yes.
So I guess basically two parts is, when is the best time to eat it? Is there a best time? I noticed in one of your slides it said for breakfast.
Yeah.
But also I've been told, and I've never forgotten, maybe it's wrong though, that you shouldn't eat fruit right after a meal. So I'm just curious about when to eat fruit and all that.
Yeah, fruit is completely fine to eat all throughout the day. It's sort of like saying, is there a bad time to drink water? No, you can have water at any point throughout the day. Maybe not like right before bed if you have trouble holding your bladder, but fruit is such a healthy carb for us. When I talk to my clients about fruit, the only real guidance I give is let go of all this high sugar nonsense. So don't freak out about bananas or pineapples or mangoes or things like that. I just want you at the end of the day that if you had a scale, you know, the grocery store scales that have the two sides, that your vegetables end up being twice as much in volume as your fruit. So if you're getting sort of a size of my hand and my size of my hand of veggies, you've done an amazing intake with your overall vegetable consumption. And then if you've got about the size of your hand coming from fruit, that's awesome. That could happen as part of breakfast and a snack. That could be a dessert after dinner. If you have a sweet tooth and you always want ice cream, but a small serving of fruit kind of quells that sweet tooth, there really isn't a wrong time to have fruit. That is like one of the biggest misconceptions of misinformation about healthy eating on the internet. And it's funny, right? Because it's almost like if I go back to the toothbrush asking, well, should I brush my teeth with an electric toothbrush, a manual toothbrush, or like a bamboo toothbrush? But the person isn't brushing their teeth at all. And they're spending so much time researching which toothbrush to use, as opposed to just going and brushing their teeth. So we can get really lost in the weeds of like, is this the right thing? And if I can simplify it for all of us on the call today, if nature made it, if it is a whole food, it's totally great to put in your body. You really don't have to stress and worry about it. But yeah, as a tip, can vegetables be twice as much as fruit by the end of your day? And boom, you're right on track.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Do you classify tomatoes as a fruit or a vegetable, and cucumbers as well? Because botanically speaking, I've heard that they're fruit.
Nutritionally, they're vegetables.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, this is a great place for us to wrap up. If you want any of the resources, the vegetable and fruit rainbow game, the kids bingo, or if you're interested in powerful progress, send me a message at info right on the screen at nutritionrx.ca, and I'll make sure I get that out to you right away. Thanks so much for being here today, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay, have a great afternoon. Bye.